Hey guys, this is Fate at Diablo3StrategyGuide.com. Today I'm going to be bringing you another build breakdown. And the build we're covering today is a wizard build. It kind of got a lot of popularity in the last month and a half, and it is the Archon build. And it's kind of the last of the major wizard builds that's out there that we'll be covering. Alright, so first I'm going to go over some of the basic assumptions we're going to be making throughout this video. I'm going to assume you're level 60 with the skills and runes. I don't know exactly where you unlock all the skills and runes you need for this build, but at this point in the game, over 2.5 months after it's been out, I'm going to just assume that you're Inferno and you're familiar with kiting as a concept, as well as relatively comfortably geared up. Alright, so some of the strengths of the Archon build. It has an absolutely huge damage output. The strongest damage output of any of the wizard builds, and in that regard it's kind of similar to the zombie bears build from the witch doctor build canon, meaning because of the huge damage output and because it doesn't rely on kiting as much as some of the other builds, it has just fantastic farming efficiency if you have enough gear. It's also very easy to use, and like I just mentioned, it's a good use of just great godlike gear. And it's a really badass build. A lot of it is very easy to use. It's simply right click and the enemy goes down. That being said, it is a highly gear dependent build, and if you do not have the gear for this build, or you're under geared for the area that you are playing at, it's a terrible build to do. But at its height, if you have godlike gear, this is the build you want to be using to farm Act 3, and that's kind of like the ultimate level of the wizard at that point, is to be farming with magic fine gear at Act 3. And because it's so gear dependent, and because it's not one of the main builds I'm run generally, I'm going to be showing a lot of gameplay footage from Act 1, and so we're just getting into some of that here. And the idea here is to simply have permanent Archon mode on. And so you can see I just pretty much trigger Archon and right click and this enemy goes down. And you can tell I'm over geared for this scenario, and that's exactly at kind of the point you want to be when you are using this build. You should be able to do the areas that you're playing at with other builds, but this build just does it that much more efficiently. And so the other skills you'll be using, the basic goal of them is to try to refresh the Archon as quickly as possible. So it kind of came out as a variant of the Wicked Wind critical mass build, but instead of going melee wizard and you just kind of spamming this disintegrate and explosive blast, the idea is to use the Wicked Wind to refresh the cooldown very quickly of your Archon and stay in that mode as much as possible. And of course, because one of the mechanics of Archon itself is that you're able to refresh, you're able to keep it up for an additional second if you kill an enemy. Kind of where and when you cast this is extremely important, as well as what areas you farm in, as you want kind of these areas, such as this very skeletonous region, where you can kill enemies quickly and efficiently. If there's fewer enemies in the area, and even if there's a number of elites, it's probably not a good idea to run this build. Places like Vault of the Assassin and a lot of the dungeons in Act 3, such as the Keep Depths, are really ideal places to be running this build. And so the other three skills that you're going to be using are Energy Armor, using Prismatic Armor, because ideally you have the gear to do so, Magic Weapon and Force Weapon, and Spark Flint, the Familiar Rune. And so these skills are all kind of active passive skills, in the sense that they are actually active skills, but you have to cast them just that once, and then they're providing you benefit for a sustained amount of time. In other words, because you can't cast them while you're in Archon mode, you cast them immediately before you go into the mold, and they will be active for the duration of your Archon. And so you can see here, because I'm able to kill so many enemies here, I have time to teleport back home, put some items in my stash, and then continue the Archon. And this is really the optimal use of Archon, is in these scenarios where you're able to kill a ton of them. You're pretty much able to right click on elite mobs and take them down extremely quickly. So you'll see I just go on to the next phase of my run at the Festering Woods. and just the gameplay is pretty much as easy as it gets. Right click to kill. So in the case of this build, kind of the things you want to itemize for, and this is covered in more detail in a blog post on our site covering the Archon build, so please check that out. But you do absolutely want to optimize for crit damage, and crit chance for obvious reasons, so you can quickly refresh that, as well as attack speed. And in this case, following just the Blizzard overall DPS metric on your inventory tab is absolutely an okay thing to do. Kind of a luxury metric that's actually really good with this build is movement speed, and if you're able to max that at 25% with items such as Wanderlust or Tyrael's Might. Wanderlust of course comes with Magic Find, and Tyrael's Might increases your move speed on a chest piece, is because just having that extra movement speed not only helps to increase your farming efficiency, but allows you to kill enemies quicker, so you don't have to have kind of these extended periods of running around with the Archon build. And so maximizing that movement speed at 25% really helps to accomplish that. And so you can see in the gameplay that in this case the Archon was able to last for multiple minutes simply because I was able to kill so many when I did the Jars of Souls side quest. And I'm not even going particularly fast. I'm picking up a number of items, taking my time. Now if you do want to try this build and you're maybe not super geared up for Act 3, what I recommend is doing something similar to what I'm doing now. Get the gear to really comfortably do act below what you're doing. So if you're doing Act 2, go down to Act 1 and try this out. Most of the gear that's required for other builds, other than the exception of the critical mass build of course, translates pretty well over to this Archon build. The Archon build of course, you definitely want to optimize for DPS, and if you've noticed, both the magic weapon and familiar really help to increase that DPS, and you should really get it. If you're planning on doing Act 3, I'd recommend getting your DPS after you have magic weapon and spark flint on, probably to around 100k-ish. You also should have very good resist, and I've actually heard of people having pretty good success running pretty low vitality but strong life on hit. So that's another possible attribute that you do want to optimize for. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little thing about the Archon build. It's personally not my absolute favorite build, basically because the gameplay is just not too interesting to me. Although if you do want to farm Act 3 at ridiculous efficiencies, I highly recommend that you check this build out. Please check out our website, www.diablo3strategyguide.com, where we're bringing you both great free and premium content for you guys. There's also a corresponding blog post about the Archon build, including more information on how to item up the build and just general gameplay knowledge, so please check that out as well. Thanks for watching.